Retiring in the San Miguels, Episode 3, Discovering the Hawaii of the Atlantic, the Azores. I think about a third of Americans think about the possibility of retiring overseas, even if it's just a passing thought. In 2021, 450,000 Americans collected their Social Security benefits outside of the U.S. But since many of the Americans actually collect their benefits at a local bank and then transfer it to a foreign bank, the number is really much greater. So 12% or 8.7 million Americans live abroad. So I was one of those Americans daydreaming about living, retiring in another place like Costa Rica, Thailand, Italy, Mexico, Spain. And then, surfing on the internet, on YouTube, I came across this video called I'll Never Return to My Past Life. It was a 27-minute long video from a company that helps people get residency or citizenship through investment. Up until that video, I had never even heard of the Azores Islands. Where in the world is the Azores? Well, the problem is when you look on the regular map, it doesn't show up. So here, if we zoom in, you can see these tiny little specks, and in the Atlantic is a big ocean, and there are only a few other little islands that are not in the Caribbean, like the Madeira and the Canary Islands. So here we zoom in further, we can see it's a group of 9 islands that are part of Portugal. So after watching this video, I became entranced of these islands, and I had to know more. So the problem with most places that I searched is that, yes, the cost of living was so much cheaper, but normally they were in countries that were not really stable. The governments were corrupt, and it just wasn't a good place to retire in. So here, this is a place that is actually in Europe, that is very safe, actually much safer than the US. It grows much of its own food. The cost of living is so much cheaper. It has good roads. It's not too hot. It never freezes. The people work hard and they're honest. And it's only a few hours from the US or Europe. And there's an abundance of natural beauty all around. It is like Hawaii, but affordable, and it's in the Atlantic. As you can see on this graph, I compared Tampa with Punta Delgado, which is their main city on the islands. And Tampa is where I live now. And you could see that Tampa is 2.19 higher than Punta Delgado. So, because it is an island, a lot of the stuff that you import may be more expensive. But, like food, much of the food is grown, if you buy the food that's grown locally, it is much cheaper. Gas is more expensive, but your rent is much cheaper. So a lot depends about how you live. These prices are if you lived as a local. If you want all the luxuries of America, then it will be much more costly to live in a foreign country. But if you live more closely to what the locals live at, you can live a much cheaper life. So the Azores are the Hawaiis of the 1970s. It's affordable, but I think it's going to increase greatly in the next 10 to 20 years. So right now, it's a bargain, but like Hawaii is now unaffordable for most Americans. If you only had bought the property 50 years ago, it would have been a steal. 5 years ago, hardly anybody in the US knew or visited the Azores. You know, the Azores are rapidly becoming a very popular destination. The US visitors used to be a tiny minority, but now they're the second largest group of visitors onto the island. In 2019, they had 900,000 guests with 3 million overnight stays. And this is for a population of only about 236,000. As the world seems to be getting more and more dangerous and predictable, being thousands of miles away from harm could be a great benefit. Few islands are that far away, and the ones like New Zealand and Hawaii are way too expensive or hard to immigrate into. While the Marshall or the Easter Island might not have the kinds of comfort that you would want to live on. Being on an island where they grow enough food and have enough energy is very important. So the Azores Islands, like Iceland, has volcanoes and get a lot of geothermal and wind energy. While most of the islands in the Caribbean, they must import all of their food and energy, which could be horrible in a time of danger. Being part of NATO and having a U.S. Air Force base makes for very good security, in addition to being thousands of miles from any harm. So, with all these advantages, I decided I needed to book a trip to explore the Azores Islands.